This is how my desk usually looks.
That's how your desk usually looks?
Yes. Exactly like this.
Dude, my desk at work is an absolute disaster.
They say that that's a show of intellect, so kudos.
Or a reflection of your life. Yeah. So I think it's a little more of the latter for me. But anyway.
No, Steven, get out of here.
Welcome back, everybody. So tonight we have someone really awesome on. His name is Craig Ettinger. You are a lawyer. Hello, Craig.
Hello, Steven. Great to be here.
And last time we saw each other was like college at some point,
yeah,
right?
U of A. I'm sure we had some random run. I remember Cersei all the time where we'd be lifting and we'd be like, hey, what's up, man? Hey, bro, in our tanks and stuff.
Yeah.
Those are the days.
That was the last time. Man, good times. I miss that place.
Yeah, you're telling me. But they've flipped it upside down now. It's completely different.
Really?
Even within like the 4 years that we've moved from there, I mean, it's crazy. They're doing a whole new thing with Green Street. Like,
they have a Target on Green Street now. Or did you hear about that?
No.
Yeah.
What?
So, you know where Firehouse used to be?
Yeah.
That whole place is down now, and it's going to become a Target, like a 2-story Target with buildings on top.
Okay.
Crazy. I know. It's nuts.
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's convenient because it's right there. That's like the center of commerce for that area. Like, I went down Green Street all the time, but that to get drunk.
Yeah. But hey, now you can go into the Target now. Nice at like 12 a.m. I don't know. It'll probably be 24. But
yeah.
Yeah. So you studied law. Was it law? Is it you just study law, or do you study like a business and then go apply for law school? I don't know. Is there multiple ways?
So there are multiple ways you can go at it. So people sometimes, people who are older than us, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, they still go to law school. Those people sometimes have had a prior business or they're changing careers, job paths, But usually, you'll get people like me who had a psych degree and you were like, well, what can I do with this? And then you answer yourself and say nothing. So you go to law school. So I had a fair amount of people that were around our age. Some people take a gap year, some don't. But basically, what they teach you, they don't teach you anything about the business. You got to learn that on your own or have a teacher. But the first year you go through the core, building blocks of how to understand the law. So that starts with like contract law, criminal law, tort law, negligence and batteries and stuff like that. Then property law, which, that's the worst one. And then constitutional law, which is obviously my favorite. And then, you get your legal writing classes, and then you learn how to interpret statutes, because that's how we work in this world. It's all statutory. Everything that, there's a difference between the statutory law and common law. Common law is basically what judges write. And sometimes you can have common law that's written about statutes. Like, you got to interpret statutes because, legislatures, they pass these statutes that just have this bland language. You're like, okay, so I'm reading this really general language. How do I apply it? What does this word mean? What does this word mean? What does this word mean when you read it next to this one? Like, it's like construing a contract too, when you see these lawsuits where there's a fight about a comma. A comma can change the outcome of what relief you're trying to attain. So it's... you deal with all sorts of issues every day, basically. Hopefully I, put that in a nutshell well enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I took, in school, I had to take patent law and like kind of engineering law. And I remember a lot of things you mentioned, like I had to go over just common cases, torts, battery, patent law, intellectual property, IP, and like everything. Though that was like 3 years ago. I don't remember any of that.
Well, IP law, that's a very special area of the law because under the federal code, you can go to federal court just over a patent. If a patent's involved, you get an entry to federal court. It's not very easy to get to federal court. You got to usually file something as a federal claim. Like when you file a complaint, you get to choose what you want to file under, and get your relief. You can choose your theory. That's that's a part of the, greatness of this country. Yeah. But, you got a direct pathway through there, but usually, people do what's called diversity of citizenship jurisdiction. And with that, you got one person in one state fighting with a person in another state, and you got to bring at least $75,000 worth of damages to the table. Congress always adjusts that, commensurate with inflation. So I'm sure they'll change it in like 2025 or maybe, I don't know. Yeah, Congress can never get along, so
we'll see.
I'm not gonna hold my breath.
So U of I, then the next step after that.
I went to Chicago Kent College of Law, spent 3 years there, and that's how I came to write this book right there. Does the history behind the adoption of the Fourth Amendment demand abolishing the third party doctrine. A mouthful.
And you're gonna get into this today, which I know you and I have gone back on Facebook here and there, between articles being posted, either one of us comments on one thing or the other, or some common friend of ours comments something, and I go, why does that matter? And you go, why does it matter?
I know.
Then you kind of put me on my place, or make me go, oh shit.
I mean, you make me think too. I mean, you got to have opposing viewpoints, otherwise, where are you going to really how are you going to fine tune things?
Yeah, and one of the biggest things too is I read a bit through this last night, and third-party doctrine was something I didn't know existed. I had no clue. I still don't fully know either, all the ins and outs of that. And you specialize in the Fourth Amendment, right?
Well, I don't want to go that far. I don't want to hold myself out, but I do know a fair amount about the Fourth Amendment. But in regards to the third-party doctrine, I think I can answer why you probably haven't heard about it so much, because contrary to today, there have been actual legislative responses to certain cases where that doctrine has been applied. And
who does this doctrine govern, or to take advantage of, or who does it help?
So it helps the government.
Helps the government
prove their case against you beyond a reasonable doubt.
Gotcha. And anyone that uses basically anything that you say I agree to, or any app or anything, kind of locks you into that, or allows the government to use a third-party doctrine to say, hey, we have everything on you.
Well, here I want to preface it, because in theory, yes, you can, because I wanted to talk about, so there are like hierarchies a little bit in the law. So when there's not a specific protection for something in the law, you rely on the common law. That's kind of like the proverbial net that catches everything, okay? But when you have a statute, you got to follow the statute most of the time, unless there's some kind of dispute between another statute or constitutional law, separation of powers, but that's a whole nother day. But basically, how about I start with how the third-party doctrine came to be?
Okay.
So that came to be because back in like the 60s, 50s, well, probably not the 50s, but like 60s and 70s, the wire was hot. All right, the drug war was ablazing. People wanted to wiretap people, or the government wanted to wiretap people without actually having to wiretap them, because I'm not sure, but I don't think they had the capability back then. But basically, they wanted to monitor people's conversations so they can catch them in the acts of doing stuff.
And this was people that the government kind of looked at saying, or the FBI or some law enforcement said, hey, we want to look into this person.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So they'd send in, moles to, wear a recording device, record and listen into a conversation and give it back to the government. Oh, you said this? Oh, guilty. So one of those cases, I don't remember all the cases because it's been so long since I read and wrote that, but I think United States versus White is one of them. And, there's basically a group of cases that says, look, what you say out in the public sphere, you assume the risk by saying that. You assume the risk that third parties will be divulging that information to anyone, anywhere, at any time. So that's where the court's like, you don't have any expectation of privacy in your conversation with this individual because you divulged it to that person. So, in today's world, that would kind of conflate common sense, because you're like, well, I'm going to the bank to open an account. I give them my social security number. I don't consent to the government having that. So, that gets into the later stuff. But, following these group of cases that said what you say to a third party is privilege is gone, or your expectation of privacy, then came this groundbreaking United States Supreme Court case, United States versus Miller. It was in the late 70s, I think, and it was a Nixon justice who wrote the opinion, because Nixon wanted to stack the courts and get his agenda full force, because he supported the drug war, which the drug war was just an excuse to put minorities into prison, to use the 13th Amendment and profit off them. So that's the third party doctrine was a decent start. So in United States versus Miller, there was this guy who went to the bank, opened an account, and basically the government subpoenaed his information that you use in the basic trade of going to the bank, filling out deposit slips, filling out negotiable instruments like checks and stuff, so they subpoenaed the banking institution for that information. Miller, he said, well, wait a second, I've got an expectation of privacy in this stuff. I went here because I'm doing this under confidentiality. Like, what's going on here? I shouldn't have to answer the subpoena. So, it was litigated in court, and the court ultimately held, well, look, if you voluntarily relinquished your reasonable expectation of privacy. You don't have one. So the government can take this information and use it against you in a trial. And after that, Congress passed an act. That's why the third-party doctrine, isn't really rearing its ugly head all around, because Congress has been pretty good in the past at responding to these things. I forget exactly what the act is called. That's why I have my piece of paper here. But there was an act specifically to protect the confidentiality of banking instruments and what's used in that trade or commerce. So following that, there was, maybe I should mention, when in order to, when you want to get stuff suppressed from your trial under the Fourth Amendment, there's a concept called standing. And standing means, okay, I've got a right, I'm aggrieved, I'm injured, I have a right to contest whether or not the government can use this evidence against me. That's where you bring about the Fourth Amendment. And there was a whole fight about if you could even suppress evidence from a criminal trial, because everyone's like, let the police do whatever they please. I mean, there's nothing in the Fourth Amendment itself that says, you can suppress this evidence, but, that's another conversation for another day. But, so, if you don't have standing if the third-party doctrine is proven to a court or a judge.
And the third-party doctrine now today, that you start with the banks, or with this trial. Now, what is that, or govern now, third-party doctrine? And I'm assuming social media, anything that basically we in this generation use today.
Well, it's, like I said before, it's kind of like in the backdrop, because there are statutes that expressly deal with social media and the like okay. This was passed in 86, the Electronic Communications Privacy Act of 1986. That's a huge act that encompasses a whole host of activities that law enforcement employ, or, even private individuals like you and me. So, it's a crime. You can't wiretap people. There are specific grounds where the government's got to apply for in order to get a wiretap. There's specific grounds in order to get a pen register installed on someone's phone line, like a pen register that records the phone numbers you dial to someone else. That's another case where the Supreme Court said in the 70s again, Smith v. Maryland, where you don't have an expectation of privacy in the numbers you dial. I don't know why I'm laughing that I say that, but it just sounds funny to me. And then, with social media, so those are...
Does that also cover text messages? Or does that cover anything with phones, or just all electronics? Or
the third-party doctrine? Or?
No, the
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's this thing called the Stored Communications Act, and that deals primarily with what third-party providers or electronic service users, or providers, what they hold on account of you. So they're a third party. So that's a broad-ranging act, the Stored Communications Act. And basically, what you need to prove in order to, get what's called an order, or like there are different subsections of the statute. There are some things called D orders, Section D of the statute, and then regular court orders. All you need to show is what's called reasonable suspicion, and you need specific and articulable facts that lead you to believe that something in, Apple's iCloud storage concerning this individual will help you in the prosecution of that individual. And then, there's another thing I wanted to get into. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. There are so many different cases, and when I was in class too, I just remember it was like we had like quizzes and tests on all these things. I was like, man, there are so many things. I'm like, laws, like it's really cool to see all these cases and how they all affect anything happening today and the future. But I was like, there's no way I could become a lawyer. I know, the probability.
You could become a lawyer, Stephen.
You think? I don't know.
If you want to hate yourself every day, then you can do it.
I already do that in manufacturing.
Good.
Which is what I do. But I don't know if I would be able to do that. But it's fascinating to me. It just wasn't my cup of tea. I know I wouldn't be able to because I love just look at the physical material world too much and like studying that versus what stupid ways can you screw someone over or protect yourself. So those are that. So that's just not.
Have you heard of Facebook?
Yeah. Which after like talking with you and stuff, now I'm like, man, should I even have a Facebook? But
well, I don't have one anymore.
Yeah.
I got rid of it. I mean, there are personal reasons that I got rid of it, but at the same time, after this whole Cambridge Analytica scandal occurred, I was like, what am I doing? How many people do I want to know where I live? How many people do I want to know my cell phone number? How many people do I want to know my birth date? Like, I don't know any of these people. They're strangers. Why would I want them to take my data, manipulate it, target me based upon, black and white standards, and then try and manipulate my psychology, my personality?
So, I remember when this came out. This was like last year, maybe 2 years ago. This was like right after the election, kind of Cambridge, everything. But one of the arguments is like, what if I wanted targeted ads, or because I feel like the biggest thing I notice are ads. Either I search up the term sunglasses, or I have a dream about it, and sunglasses just show up somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really understand how that happens, but I look up sunglasses. I go, okay, and then all of a sudden I'll get a bunch of different sunglass ads or competing companies going at each other, or they're like, sunglasses, how about shirts? And you're like, I do need a T-shirt. They figure out certain ways to get you. What is something that you see in that, or my statement going, well, I don't know, maybe if they like have better targeted ads, why should I care if a company has some information on me?
Well, that you can have your own reasons for it, obviously. Like I like the targeted ads sometimes too. I'm not gonna deny that, but at the same time, it gets a little bit creepy because when you were talking about, I was talking about sunglasses. Well, they can that can be picked up based upon if you've allowed your iPhone, Samsung, or whatever to listen in on your conversations, because you can allow that capability. I mean, that's the same thing with Alexa. It's the same thing with all these voice record, like when you speak to your Comcast remote or something. I hate Comcast, but saying, I want to watch The Parent Trap. This is embarrassing. That is in 2019, but they can take that and then they store it and they try to profile you.
They 100% listen.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
There's no. At work I had
Facebook admitted it.
Didn't they admit though that it was through messages though? It wasn't necessarily voice, but it was through your iMessage or your Facebook Messenger. I thought they admitted that it was through Facebook Messenger. Then they picked out your stuff, which is you want to think is your own private data, not just you clicking on things on Facebook.
Right.
But I thought they admitted to that, not necessarily the voice.
Well, I don't know exactly what they admitted to because they like to lie. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg perjured himself, but they when you read their privacy policies, there's a thing in the law that's called informed consent. When you have these privacy policies that you got to take your cursor over the little, the thing that allows you to roll down the pages, who's going to want to have time for that? And that tiny little print, that's coercion. That's something in the call called unconscionability, in my opinion. I mean, today, courts won't uphold that, based upon a myriad of views, but that's coercive. If the first thing that courts and Congress need to do, including state legislatures, there needs to be a constitutional amendment where the right to your data is a constitutional right. That's when the laws flow from there. When you have that basic foundation, that's when you can breathe a little bit more of a sigh of relief. Because look at what they're doing in the EU right now. They right after this Cambridge Analytica scandal happened, I think in 2016, the EU voted to start the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation.
Before we go on, what was the Cambridge Analytica incident that happened? Boil it down a little bit for people that may not know.
So this kind of actually starts in 2013 because there was this application that coincided with Facebook, and I believe he's a high-up executive. He was a high-up executive, I should say, at Cambridge Analytica. His name, and he's a psychologist from Cambridge University. So this all ties together. His name was Dr. Alexander Hogan, I believe his name was. And Alexander is spelled Ksander. But,
Wait, what?
Aleksander. It's like Skarsgård, the CEO.
Okay.
The same spelling.
I thought you said Alexander started with K. I was like, I don't, what? Silent K?
No,
Okay.
my bad.
Yeah, go on.
So Hogan, he helped get this app called This Is Your Digital Life going. And that app was basically displayed on Facebook, and if people would click on the app, they would, get a survey and answer a bunch of questions about, that would basically detail what their psychology is, their personality. So if you opted into that, your friend, so let's say that you did that, Stephen. I know you wouldn't, but let's say you did, okay? Let's say I still had a Facebook and I was your friend. By the mere fact of you consenting to doing that, they get to look at all my friends. They get to look at all my whole Facebook page, even if I set it on private at that time, if that was a thing. So they got access to all that data. So think of all those branches.
So it's like the 6 degrees of separation. You just you get the whole world or country or whatever you really want.
Yeah, I mean this has been a setup. This isn't no conspiracy theory, because they specifically took those data points. They took those data points in 2016, and they basically tried to find. I think because there's a Netflix documentary about this too. They tried to target the people in the 2016 election, because first Cambridge Analytica was with Cruz. He got dumped after, he lost. So then they went to Trump. And then what they did for Trump is they took those data points, they took that data that they had on about 87 million Americans in the United States, and they targeted people in the swing states. So you got Michigan, Wisconsin, I think it was Pennsylvania. I think those were the 3 states they targeted. They were targeting people, and I may be a little bit off here, quote-unquote persuadables. Basically people who are on the fence about who they're going to vote for. So they would send targeted information to them. They would curate their news feeds with stuff that they think would force them, force them to vote for Trump. Ignite enough anger, ignite enough passion, emotion to get them to vote for Trump. And that's what Trump is. He's, he has no brain. He's just completely all emotion. So.
Craig, he's amazing. Why are
he's totally fantastic, okay? Nobody's better than him. But there's a label I'd like to put on this, and other people have put a label on this as this as well, and it's called digital gerrymandering. There's no other way you can put it. That is digital gerrymandering. And, there were reports, too, that I think, who knows how much hand-in-hand ties Russia had.
Digital gerrymandering because as a political opponent, you would be able to know where each side is, even though they could be in a different district, but you could play ads in certain areas, or if you know that this district is more on the fence than this, you spend more time in there, and you can flip that side to you.
Right, you can rig it.
Yeah.
That's plain and simple, rigging it. And I remember Trump was like, oh, it was rigged against me. Oh, please, you rigged it in your favor. Come on. But he may not have known, because he's not that smart, But that's what Skarsgård did, and his cronies. They targeted people's personalities because they wanted, if they could get them to respond in the way they wanted, get Hillary Clinton to say something that she didn't say, people will go vote on that, issues that people have huge emotional ties to, like immigration, cops shooting African Americans. That's what happened with Russia and Cambridge Analytica, or I think there were ties between them. I'm not sure. I'm not going to make that allegation, but that there was curated content specifically geared towards African Americans that would force them to not vote for Hillary Clinton. Like that was the whole end game, was just to make Trump win the Electoral College. And Hillary messed up, but how much did she really have in control? I mean, WikiLeaks hacked her. They took thousands of her emails to make her look like the bad guy, and then they're so afraid of her that they rig these 3 states against her. Like that's pure cowardice.
Yeah, there definitely was some. So officially, what is it? There was no. Well, it's not. What was?
Are you gonna say the C word?
No. What was? Mueller's report basically said that Trump there was misconduct with Trump, but there are no ties to specifically like Trump and Russia. Is kind of the.
Oh, he didn't go far enough. He didn't file the taxes.
Didn't Germany or some bank just said that they were going to release his taxes?
I think New York today or yesterday. I think it was today. They announced that they subpoenaed Trump's accountants for his tax returns. Now I know the law behind that too, and Trump's got no chance if he asserted the Fifth Amendment. One, that would blow up politically, and two, he doesn't have that privilege. But yeah,
that'll be interesting.
Yeah,
it's very clear that what is Trump? Is he this terrible, man that everyone makes him out to be? I don't know. I think he's kind of just power hungry and just it clearly had a life of luxury and wanted power, and he got the ultimate position by playing the American people and playing to what Americans fear.
Yeah.
I don't care the political side that you're on too much, but it's just clear that he just he shouldn't be our president. I just don't know how people can't just be like, I think, like how he of all people.
He's a populist. I mean, populism is trending because people are sick and tired of what's known as neoliberalism, which has basically been the state of our politics for the last, since Reagan at least, or even beforehand. You had Bill Clinton, who portrayed himself as a Democrat, but was a centrist. Obama portrayed himself as this leftist, but he was really a centrist. I mean, he deported 3 million people throughout his time, and I don't think he went far enough on Obamacare. He could, and he messed up with Merrick Garland. I think he could have done better with that. Like, he wanted to put Merrick Garland was a centrist. He voted in favor of Citizens United. He voted in favor of that detrimental decision. So I don't know what he was thinking picking him, but he wanted to appease the Republicans, and that is the problem with Democrats. We just want to keep making deals, but it's not going to work anymore.
It won't work, especially how Congress.
Psychology, personalities have been warped, and I partly blame the very center of the conversation we're having today. Those entities like Google, Facebook, Twitter. They control the conversation, not the news media corporations anymore. They control it in part, but I guess it's kind of a compliment to Facebook and Twitter.
Do they control it, or do their customers control it? Like Cambridge Analytica and all these fake Facebook accounts and fake Facebook pages.
Right.
And Facebook is just a mess right now.
It is.
And I don't really know the answer on how to control that. Are there things? Are there any acts right now or anything that people in law are trying to change? Like, hey, we need to take power away from you, or hey, we need to watch the power that you guys have, because with too much power comes too much responsibility.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man quote. And it's true. I mean, Facebook, obviously. I mean, I remember in 2012, Obama and Romney. That was the first time for me I noticed that election was really on Facebook. There was two ends and arguments and stuff, but there weren't like really any like. I felt like manipulation or crazy. Like, were Facebook pages even a thing back then? I don't remember.
I don't either.
But it was clearly in 2016, Facebook blew up.
The page turned.
And it's clear that these social media outlets are the future of all elections. Since it can just show anyone can have an opinion now. Before that wasn't a thing. It was crazy. Previous elections, you had not maybe prior to the 2000s, you had channels 2, 5, 9, 7, and that was
what are those again?
Broadcast networks. And now it's just you have so many outlets, so much just garbage coming at you in every direction. People's opinions, pages, everyone's trying to give it a leg up. Everyone's trying to get a little and save a little. And with our current political climate, and just psychological climate right now, which is our country, there needs to be a way that we can limit this.
Well, there are some limits in place. I mean, Illinois, they've got the strongest act in terms of protecting your biometrics. So your biometrics are you know what they are, right? It's an iris scan, fingerprint, anything that's got a physical presence, basically, that's associated with the human body. So, there's this case called, it was against Six Flags, where basically this mom got really upset, go moms. Her son put his fingerprint in to get a season pass, for Six Flags. That's how they do it now. They do fingerprints. And now this Illinois Biometric Information Privacy Act it makes it unlawful. Just the mere fact that you take that fingerprint, you don't tell them how they're using it, you don't tell them how you're using it, you don't inform them of the effects, and you don't get their release in writing. So this is like one of the first sets of statutory schemes where informed consent is necessary. If you don't give that consent, you can pay $5,000 in damages for each intentional violation that you commit. Now, California's got something really...
What could you do with a fingerprint?
Oh, man. Well, you know what happened with that Golden State killer?
No.
Okay, well...
Because I'm thinking, I just scan my fingerprint. I'm like, all right.
Well, the thing is...
someone has it out there.
Yeah.
But, like, okay. Like, do I think there's some crazy scheme that someone's going to, like, murder someone and be like, we hacked Six Flags data. He had a 3D printer to put his fingerprint on there and just put it on the crime scene.
Well,
holy shit, that would be a good way to frame someone.
Well, the thing is, when you take these physical pieces of information, you usually cross-reference them with a database. If your name pops up in a database, that's not good. You don't want that. You don't want anything to be associated with that. So,
but I'm a law-abiding citizen. I do nothing wrong.
So far as I know. You haven't hired me yet, Steven.
I pay my taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I go to the grocery store. I go to church on Sunday. And I love my kids. I do nothing wrong. Why does it matter if someone has my fingerprint?
If it's your fingerprint, well, think about these data breaches with Capital One, the most recent one.
Okay.
Hackers have your information. People can take your fingerprint and manipulate it for identity theft, for a myriad of things. I mean, you can't trust anyone.
Dude.
As terrible as that sounds, you really can't.
You could like James Bond it and like 3D print a finger. There's a YouTube video actually. Someone said they went to great lengths to trick. So when Apple had the ID, Touch ID.
Yeah.
They went to great lengths like how do you trick Touch ID? And there's ways to like print like so your thumbprint's not just this layer. There's multiple layers underneath.
Okay.
Your different like skin or like dermal levels of skin.
Is that why it takes so long for you to get your fingerprint? Because I remember I was like, just read it, man.
I think that's more of just so you don't have to have your fingerprint in the same spot every time. I would move my finger around. I would flip it upside down. I would do weird things, get the edges, so that way I can just touch it doesn't matter how I touch the phone. That's why it does that more. But there was a YouTube video, and they were able to like on a gelatin layer print multiple layers of the fingerprint. And they went to like huge, great lengths, and then finally they could get into someone's phone.
Really?
Your standard everyday person is some thug on the street that goes steals your phone. They're not gonna go do that.
No.
But it's more of like, dude, what if there's some crazy like government agency, some 007 stuff going on?
There are crazy people.
Or Mission Impossible, and like they knock out the banker in the bathroom, and then they have like this crazy machine that like prints out the fingerprint, pop, gets it, has the text messages, they have the bomb code. I'm a movie writer.
Steven, if people didn't exist like that, I'd be unemployed.
Yeah.
They do exist.
Oh my gosh.
Someone wants to call in.
I know. Caller here. Yeah, we'll just let that ring.
That's fine. I don't mind. But what was I going to get into?
I don't know. I took us off. We were talking about the third-party doctrine, though.
Yeah.
One thing I did want you on is kind of talk about, too.
Do you want me to talk about... Well, I think sorry to interrupt you, but I remember that, you were asking about state responses. California's got a pretty aggressive bill out right now.
Yes.
I think they passed it in 2018, and people are freak-a-leaking. Let me tell you. Corporations are freak-a-leaking, as well as the people...
Freak-a-leaking.
Yeah, so California, I think it's called... AB, that's what they call their bills. All right, I don't want to go through this junk, but AB 252 or 2000 something 52, I think. So the bill basically says you can't monetize my data. It makes data privacy a basic right. Revolutionary, besides Illinois' BIPA. So that was in response, obviously, to Cambridge Analytica stuff, where more of that came out in 2018. So they passed this bill, and they did it in a rush because there was going to be this ballot proposal that was going to, go on the ballot, obviously, from the people of California, where it was going to be even stricter and more impossible to enforce than what is currently passed on the books right now. So it was a preventative measure, and they hastily did it, but they had to, because people are fed up. I'm fed up, but So legislatures in California, they've been on the record and they said, well, we need to clean it up a little bit. But here's the thing: there's kind of a gamesmanship going on with this bill right now because because big corporations like Intel, they proposed a bill. So then, but some experts say that it's actually a decent bill, but I don't trust when a profit motive's involved. So that's just my thing. So basically, there's this thing in the law called preemption. It's inherent in the supremacy clause of the Constitution. So basically, federal law trumps state law. And if you frame it in a way to say, look, federal Congress occupies this field, states can't touch it. If you frame a statute in terms like that, or they're like two different other ways, then a state statute that occupies that field that Congress is taking, then it's unconstitutional. So there's that, ebb and flow going on right now with that piece of legislation.
I've heard before, and I remember at one point I believe this was like, we need to rewrite some parts of the amendments of the Constitution. Do you agree to that?
Oh, yes.
One thing, though, that didn't exist, 200 odd years or so ago were the corporate reach so the corporations that did exist back then, but they didn't have as much of a reach as they did, or they have way more of a reach now than they did 200 years ago.
Right.
Do we want to be rewriting? So do we look at it as in, like, there's two ways, obviously the Second Amendment is the biggest one recently, is that, the founding fathers, they wrote these laws, they were the all-knowing, seeing eye, and they knew exactly what us citizens needed.
Your red cap right now?
Yes. So there's the way that, that there's that way to look at it. Then the flip side is they didn't know shit. They had no clue what the future was going to be. They had no clue what was going on.
Correct.
Corporations, the people that ran, that you can go into conspiracy. The banks, they had no clue what was happening. They didn't know where it was going. So, do we want to rewrite it saying, hey, they didn't know shit? It's time to bring it to the modern age. Or the people who run this country and the corporate entities that lobby and are behind probably a lot of the things that are going on in this country.
Yes. Do
we want to rewrite it now because they have the power, and if they rewrite it, or if we rewrite it in reality, it'll be more in favor of them? What are the two ways to look at that, do you think?
Well, the one thing that's in common with what you're trying to basically ask is, who can we trust? So trust is inherent in this. And, honestly, I think there needs to be constitutional amendments. There needs to be many constitutional amendments to address the many things in this country that have just flown by us, and we're like, whoa, okay, this is bad, but it was, we knew it was bad here, but it got really, really bad. So, but the practicality of that, you gotta get 2/3 of the states to vote on it, you gotta get 2/3 of Congress. Like, with how polarized we are right now, I'm surprised we even got this First Step Act done, which, reduced sentences and got rid of sentences for certain people in federal prisons. I think, honestly, states are going to have to take the mantle on this, because federal Congress has shown time and time again it can't get its act together unless somehow, Democrats get a majority and know how to play politics for once. That's, there's been talk since the 90s of something called the Equal Rights Amendment, where everyone's got equal rights. Everyone, men, women, everyone. So you can't discriminate pay. You can't discriminate any other benefits, on the basis of sexual orientation and like that Karen Fisher or whatever in Kentucky wouldn't give out the marriage licenses after the Supreme Court decision came down. Scum. But, it's going to take an army. And, I'm confident about 2020, but I think that the Democrats are going to drop the ball. And I think they have been. I
already have a feeling Trump's going to win again.
Yeah. Well,
I had that feeling in 2016 too. I was like, I don't know.
The most interesting thing about that is, so he had a deputy campaign director, this guy who kind of looks like a white supremacist. He's got a goatee, bald head,
on the
really
Trump
tall
administration.
Right?
What are you talking? What?
So I don't know his exact name, but now he's the campaign manager. He's the guy because I think he had a lot to deal with in regards to Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica isn't the only kind of company doing what they're doing. They're not.
I think I just
exclusive.
saw that. You're totally right. I saw that in the news recently. They're looking at a previous campaign manager for doing something similar.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what? I think we need to let Trump rewrite some of our amendments. He's the man. He's the one man. He's our president. Why wouldn't we trust him? Though, getting back to that, so do you, from looking at, how corporate law or anything has been, how they have power now, do you think we should rewrite the Constitution or add amendments?
I don't think we should rewrite it. I think we should add amendments and add more clarity, because currently, and this is an issue that needs to be discussed more, currently federal judges have lifetime, well, it's been like this, but they have lifetime appointments. That can't go. I mean, back when, we were just talking about the Second Amendment back in the day, Back in the day, people didn't live past 30. So what? We got people living to 80 or 90 on the bench when their faculties are not all there. I mean, you can just bring an example of one of the trials Robert Mueller had against, who's that guy? Paul something, or
Paul Manafort.
Yeah, that guy. Okay, so the judge in front of the jury. You don't do this in front of a jury. The judge admonished the prosecution, and you could tell what color hat he wore. He admonished the jury, and he was in his late 70s. I'm not trying to be an ageist or anything, but this is just practical reality, okay? But he was admonishing him in front of the jury, and he was showing his political bias. That, Paul Manafort was guilty, but that's a basis to reverse his conviction. Possibly. Well, no, not to reverse it. I mean, but that's just judicial misconduct. You can't have people in their 80s sitting on the bench, federal bench, because the whole thing, what the Republicans are trying to do, it's a power play. So what you do is, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here. So what you do is you stack the lower courts, all right? So let's start with the hierarchy, right? Got the lower courts, district courts. Then after that, you got courts of appeal. That's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th.
13, right?
Yeah, they're 13, 12. Yes, and then District of Columbia. So those are the 13 federal circuits. Those are the intermediate courts. Okay, and then you got the United States Supreme Court. That's our basic judicial hierarchy. So there are tons of district courts throughout the United States. And, they're like, for every district, so there's a Northern District of Illinois. They've got 20, probably 30 judges at least there, that are hearing criminal or civil matters. So if they're all Republicans, then, I told you that, I texted you this today too, that judges rule in conjunction with their politics. They see the law through their politics. So, and that, part of that goes towards something I may talk about later today, the Computer Decency Act.
I think it was in my law class, you always see this every election, midterm, you see judges, and you don't know any of them, and usually you can say yes or no, whatever, or just don't fill in anything at all.
Yeah, right, right.
My law professor, he was just like, I want all, he's like 97% or something always get reelected, or something crazy. It's like, usually once you get it, you're pretty safe as long as you don't personally mess something up terribly. Yeah. He told all of us in class, all of you guys vote against every single one of them, just so I can get enough people out there, just to show that when people vote on it, the numbers sway them a little bit and they get a little worried. So he's just like, but it wasn't more of just anything heavy. It was more of just a comical thing, just to be like, wait, 10% of the population doesn't like me now, but in reality, you just hit no, and because most people just hit yes and they're gonna get reelected.
I mean, there are I think the ABA, they release reports basically prior to every judicial election about their record and what people from their team think of them, and they're pretty reliable. I mean, they wrote our ethical code of conduct. I mean, it's not codified in federal or state law, but a lot of the states, and I think federal law, I don't know, there is federal ethics law, of course. It's modeled after what the ABA does. A lot of what the ABA puts out there.
What's the ABA?
The how do I not know this? American Bar Association. Yeah, that's what it is.
That sounds about right.
That sounds right. Okay, so right. They're a great association. I mean, when you come out of law school, they give you a free year or so membership, so you can get some of their magazines. They detail cases and stuff. Great organization. But yeah.
Okay, I know I took you off on a tangent there, but it was just
right, but can I get back to it just for, okay, so if you stack those courts, let's take a ballpark number of like 150 districts. So that's like, what's 150 times 30?
4,450.
Okay, so you got
45,000.
450.
I'm an engineer.
So you got 450 separate people with separate ideologies, and if they all coalesce under a similar understanding.
Oh wait, did you say 15 times 30 or
150 times?
Oh, 4,500.
Okay, so 4,500.
Yeah.
4,500 judges. So if you can get, a good number of them, and they're, scattered across the United States, if you can get a good number of them to view a certain way on a certain issue, like let's take abortion. So let's say that there's, something that the state does, like Missouri, they create a clearly unconstitutional ban on something. Okay, so then district court, in Missouri looks at it, says, no, I think it's fine. And then, a similar law is passed in other states, not trying to, pick on the South, but Alabama. Say they do a law, and then district court judge is like, yeah, that's fine. And then, on and on it goes. So now, let's say, because this will happen, the people who want the law to be, declared unconstitutional, they appeal. Now you got judges now you got the intermediate court thinking about it. Okay, all right, now we got the circuits involved. All right, here we go. So these circuit court judges, then they agree with the district court based upon the ideology. So what happens a lot, how the Supreme Court, what they do is they get a petition for certiorari, okay, and then they grant the petition based upon whether or not you meet the requisites in order for them to have power to hear the case, otherwise known as jurisdiction. So let's say that there's a circuit split about this abortion issue, and that's very easy to do in our political climate because if you go south of the Mason-Dixon line, it's basically red and blue up. So let's say the 7th Circuit, the 9th Circuit's pretty liberal, the Western Circuit's in the Midwest. So they all say, oh, this similar abortion law, no, that's not good. We need to get rid of it. And then we got a bunch of circuits in the South saying, no, it's we're fine with it. Supreme Court takes up the issue. Let's see who's on the court right now. John Roberts, he was appointed by Bush. Then you got Samuel Alito, also appointed by Bush. Then you've got Brett Kavanaugh, Trump, Gorsuch, Trump, Thomas. He was, I want to say, Bush Sr. or Reagan or something. I don't know, but he's Republican too. Then you got Sotomayor, who's blue. You got Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Then you've got Stephen Breyer. And then last but not least, obviously, I have her face, but she's a pretty smart lady.
Okay.
But
I wish I could help you.
Yeah, no worries. But so let's, and then let's hear that Supreme Court, take up that case, and then, the Supreme Court then's got a lot of wiggle room. At least the Republicans say it. They got a lot of wiggle room. Like, well, we have to follow something called stare decisis, where we don't abandon the certain precedent unless, there are extenuating circumstances or there's basically a differing change in how society views this or something like that. Then we can change the law. And then those lower courts and those courts of appeal, because, you see these decisions are splintered 5-4 a lot of time. That's how, good facts, as my professor, I'm forgetting his name, as my professor said, good facts can make bad law. Professor Naiman, Sheldon Naiman, my constitutional law professor. He's a great professor. But yeah, it's that recipe for disaster, it's already been formed because Trump's confirmed 150 judges.
Really?
That's the most out of any president. I read an article marking the milestone.
It's crazy that I had no clue.
That's why,
and I feel like that's not talked about.
It's not.
And it's just talked about how he, I don't know, mixed up Mars and the moon and whatever other dumb things that he tweets about at 3 a.m.
Yeah, and you know what?
Completely sober, by the way.
Right? Or he snorts Adderall, but. And that's why these people put up with him from the right, the Republicans. They put up with him because look at how many judges they got. Republicans are playing the long game. Democrats are playing the short game.
Oh, my God. So they're just building all the way up from the bottom up.
You got
Just like you explained.
You got it.
Going all the way from circuit to district.
And they do that in state court too. I mean, we were just talking about that recent Arizona Supreme Court case. I mean, there were cases in there that they were citing from 2012, 2008 that were from lower courts. And they were saying that this conduct by these two women who own this business that curates specific wedding invitations for couples, trying to get married. And they said, look, what this same-sex couple wants from us violates our religious views. And I didn't read the whole opinion, but the Arizona Supreme Court said, well, basically, this is conduct that isn't commercial. This is pure speech. I'm like, they're making a profit off it. Are you kidding me?
So explain that case. We talked about it earlier.
Right.
Before
so
the cameras were rolling.
So this implicates the First Amendment. This is just like this. I don't know if you heard about this in the news too. There's a Supreme Court opinion, I think in late 2018, called Masterpiece Cake Shop, where this man he didn't want to make a wedding cake that displayed a same-sex couple based upon his religious views, and this was in Colorado. But the Supreme Court definitely punted on that issue. I mean, Kennedy was on the court at that time, so it was a little bit different because he's the swing vote. He's very good on. I don't want to say very good, but he was decent on social issues. So I mean, that's how we got same-sex marriage decision, Obergefell. So what they did was they said that in that case they said that the commission regulating the anti-discrimination ordinance, they said that they were wrong. I mean, they didn't even evaluate the argument on its merits, probably because they didn't want to deal with public scrutiny and create a crazy, it's like butting heads between, all right, we got the 14th Amendment that protects the states, and then the 5th Amendment, which is basically the same thing that protects federal rights. And then you've got the First Amendment, that says, government shall not abridge the freedom of speech, but also within that same amendment says that, you can't prevent the exercise of religion either. So these two things are coming head-on, collision. But the thing is, when these people are asserting, oh, it's a violation or it violates my religious beliefs, I mean, that's stuff. Do you think I believe that people should commit murder? We wouldn't have a business. I mean, come on, it's a cost of doing business. Sometimes you got to risk your views in order to make money, but
I mean,
there are differing.
If murder was legal and you created a business off murder, I think that business would do just fine.
Well, the government's killing us right now, so.
But yeah, one of my arguments though with that is, I do see the side of it's a private business, right? What if they name their business Christian Cake Shop?
So
what if they're like, we're Christian good old boys making cake for the good old fashioned men and women together forever?
The thing is, and I think what the city argued in that case is that what they're doing is commercial speech, and commercial speech doesn't get as much protection. I think there are levels.
What is commercial speech? I never heard about that until.
So commercial speech, that's like before you go into like this analysis of whether or not something is, the government can infringe upon a certain free speech right, you got to determine what kind of language and or conduct it is. So, hate speech is protected. Remember the Skokie white supremacist march, that was held to be protected speech by the Supreme Court. Let's take Alex Jones, for example. Let's say that you yell fire in a theater and there's no fire and you cause people to be injured. That's not protected speech. That's what's going on with Alex Jones right now with I think he's being sued for defamation and inciting, or, basically he caused these bereaved parents of Sandy Hook to receive all these messages and all this hate and targeted conduct that injured them.
Just disgusting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but this guy has no bounds. I mean, that's why him and Trump are, basically separated by a hamburger bun or something. They're, but
separated by a hamburger bun.
It just came to mind at the moment.
It works.
Yeah, so
there's two sides to every waffle.
Yeah, two sides to every patty. But yeah, so it's commercial speech. I don't know exactly how, because state by state, federal government, they, how the judges interpret what commercial speech is. It's different all around. But basically, if you monetize, if you're advertising, like let's say that you're driving a taxi, you got an ad on top of that, that's commercial speech.
Gotcha. So if you had a big thing of commercial speech or a billboard or something saying like,
right.
screw the Jews, then all of a sudden that's
not okay.
That's not okay.
That's not okay. No. That's done. You get that taken down. No, injunction.
So then, all right. So I have a cake shop, Christian cake shop.
Oh boy.
Christian weddings, Christian wedding planning.
Sounds like I want to step foot in there.
Yeah. So if I said, hey, this is of Christian values, we only dedicate ourselves and our efforts and profits to that. Then what if they said, hey, we do not support gay marriage, is within our right, and could they say this is our commercial and our business right?
Well, they wouldn't say that, because then they'd be admitting, oh, this is commercial speech. But they would be saying this, basically they would be saying, this goes against my beliefs. This goes against my religious beliefs, and I have a First Amendment right for the government not infringing on those beliefs. So there was an ordinance in that Arizona case that said you can't discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation. So that's what these two women were challenging, is the fact, oh, well, my rights, my religious beliefs, they don't believe in gay people getting married. Well, depends. So how you deal with that issue, the precipice is whether or not what they do, curating these specific invitations, is commercial speech, or, as the Arizona Supreme Court put it, pure free speech. So depends on who you get as judges. Because when you're in front of the trial court, you get one judge. Depends on how that person leans. I think that, I don't know how the trial judge ruled, but, went up to the appellate court, and then now you got the Supreme Court. And, can you guess how the justices voted? There were 7 justices. Can you guess how they voted?
To protect the
well, business. I mean the numbers.
7? 6-1.
4-3.
4-3. Oh.
Like 5-4 at the United States Supreme Court. And, I don't know the political backgrounds of these justices, but I know enough about law and how politics influences them to know that that's probably down party lines. Because there's a dissent in there that said basically what I'm saying, that this isn't pure free speech conduct, this is commercial speech. Get out of here. But it really depends upon the ideology, because there were precedents there, and it was like I was talking about before, where you got the lower courts that the Arizona Supreme Court cited, and I think they cited federal cases too, where they said that this conduct was pure free speech. So they got a basis in the law, you could write about it. That's what lawyers do all the time. They try to make arguments that, on their, if you hear them in front of a judge who's like, you and me, who's someone who's got common sense and isn't biased. Well, we're biased, but, then
everyone's biased.
Right, but what's right and wrong and how the law should apply.
Within a rational,
right,
the realm of reality.
Yeah, so you got to get someone like that who's going to, uphold the law. But that doesn't happen.
So then what about the argument saying, hey, it's a capitalist system, right? Society will dictate who the winners and who the losers are by who will buy that product.
Sounds vicious.
I mean, that is what's going on
Race
right
to the
now.
bottom.
Yeah. So all right. I open up a shop. All right, Christian wedding planning shop. I open up my shop called LGBTQ Cakes.
Okay.
All right. So then, why does it matter?
Why does what matter?
Whether they won that case or not. So you said that that them winning it is bullshit, basically.
Yeah.
This is what you said earlier. Why does that matter? Is there anything that any implications for the future with them winning these cases, like the one that went to the Supreme Court or the one that happened in Arizona?
Well, the one from Arizona I think is worse, but the one at the Supreme Court United States Supreme Court is bad too. But the thing is, let's say do you know what Sinclair Broadcasting Group is?
Yes.
They're a corporate conglomerate who basically own all the local TV news stations within the nation.
Which is frightening.
Yes. So
that is the start of tyranny right there.
Yeah. So
tyranny.
Take that concept, apply it to these shops, these all Christian cake shops. So gay people can't have the wedding they want. That's the possibility. As far-fetched as some people who are listening right now may think, you don't know. people thought climate change wasn't going to be as bad as it is today. People thought, that we wouldn't have Donald Trump as president, but we've all been proven wrong, haven't we?
This is a strange world we live in. Climate change is a very unique, weird topic.
Yeah.
We listen to doctors when they're like, hey, take your heart medicine every day. And you go, why? Because I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
And I studied this, right?
Yeah.
I went to school for this. I've lost years of my life to this.
I like how you're breaking it down.
So that I could know all the ins and outs of all the different medications, your body type and everything, to say, hey, I want you to take this so that your heart keeps beating. Yet, when someone goes to university and studies climate science, climatology, I forget what it's called.
Environmental science.
Environmental meteorology, whatever you want to call it. And they dedicate their life to studying the different layers of the South and North Pole, looking at different amounts of carbon that's in the snow, looking at rock formations. They can look at how the magnetic poles have changed. They can look at everything and look at an entire history of our world, saying, hey, we have these ebbs and flows and weather, and all of a sudden it goes up in the last 200 years, and we have all this data saying, hey, it seems that we can date this back to around the Industrial Revolution where it really went up, and we have these instruments, these tools, the same things that same scientists that created your MRI to find the cancer, those same exact technologies and companies have also worked in the field for looking and saying, hey, we believe very, very rightly so, 99.9% positive that humans are changing the weather and the climate. This is what's happening, and we should probably change in the next 100 years or so, or else we're really going to be in trouble. And for some reason, people just don't believe that. That's the one thing they don't believe. And I'm like, why? And I go off of Pascal's wager. Do you know what that is?
Oh, I remember it vaguely.
It's basically saying whether or not you believe in hell or heaven, live your life as if you do believe in God or you do believe in heaven. Because what's wrong with that?
Okay.
You're nice to your neighbors.
That's philosophical.
Philosophical. So live by the 10 Commandments. What's the end? Because at the end of your life, if you're nice to people, you'll go to heaven. And if there is a heaven and hell, you'll go there. And if you don't believe it, well, you're nice to people, right? Supposedly. So with Pascal's wager with the weather, whether or not you treat the earth like crap or not, and whether or not you believe in climate change, wouldn't you rather not just go kick the flower in your flower bed? Wouldn't you want to just be nice to the planet that you believe that God gave you? It's like so people that don't believe in climate change, just like, well, why just live your life like you do? What do you have to lose?
Well, people are lazy and ignorant, so.
And that is and unfortunately, and I the more I see this too is like it costs.
And people don't know how to properly recycle.
That too. I do my part at work too. Like at my job, we go through so many cardboard boxes, so many pieces of plastic, getting in parts from suppliers. I try to recycle as best as possible. I even look. You have the recycling numbers. You have 1 through 5, or 1 through 8, or believe.
With the triangle.
The triangle. 5 and below can be recycled.
Okay.
Anything with a 6 and above can't be. So just throw that away.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
So you putting 6 and above actually just creates a harder time for recycling companies to sort through that stuff.
Yeah.
So if you see a 6 and above, go
just trash it,
throw it away. Yeah. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
But there's a huge cost to recycling, unfortunately, and to manufacturing materials that can be recycled. If in a perfect butterfly lullaby world, we would spend lots of our research and hard-earned money and time to create products that can 100% be recycled. But time is money, and that's expensive. We can't do that. But and also, like you said, people are just lazy. They don't care. I don't know. There's a climate walkout on Friday. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did. With I think Greta Thunberg. She's fantastic.
I like her. The only thing I don't like about her, I'm gonna go on for one thing. I'm a rational guy. I'm an engineer, I believe.
Well, you know a lot about this topic.
Yeah. The one thing that I with her is that you're a child. When I was a child, when I was in college, I was like, we can do it. And then I got out into the world and said, maybe not. I mean, we elected Donald Trump, so maybe not.
Yeah.
and once you start living your life, and once you get out there, or in a business running down, I'm thinking about that. There's times where you just have to. There's times where you can't spend enough time doing one thing, and you have to at one point just say screw it and let it go. And unfortunately, recycling and a lot of the trash that we make is one of those things that we just kind of let go. And that's the unfortunate truth of life.
Right. And
to her too, where she's like, she wants people to walk out. She's like, I'm Greta Thunberg, and I want people to walk out, and I want to. I feel the pain and the emotion and the world and the weather. And I'm like, no. Well, yes, you do. That's sad, but you're a child. People have to work. I jokingly went to my boss. I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna be here Friday, and I'm gonna go walk downtown and go to the climate march. He's like, all right. Do you have a vacation day to do it? I'm like, no, I'm just walking out in protest. He's like, all right, don't come in Monday then.
Oh my God.
Which is like where I was just like, people have jobs. I'm like, what do these people do that like they can just walk out of their work or like afford a vacation day to do that?
No, that's very true. But
so that's just my one thing with her. I'm like, you're a child.
Yeah.
Grow up a little bit. But no, I agree. I like that it at least brings attention to the issue. Unfortunately, it shouldn't even be an issue that we need to bring attention to.
Right, but there are people. I mean, there are people who can get time off too. I mean, and there are a lot of people who aren't working right now too, despite the unemployment numbers or whatever. I mean, numbers are never accurate. Let's be real.
And
here.
the employment is what you have to be looking for a job to be in the unemployment statistics. So it's like,
I don't know what the Department of Labor requires, but it's probably skewed to make it look bigger than it is.
Yeah. Well, no, right now. So once you are out of the labor force, once you stop searching for a job, you're out of the labor unemployment statistics. So even though the unemployment rate can go down, that doesn't mean people got jobs. That just means that people have stopped looking for jobs officially.
Okay.
So that is one number. Like this happened under Obama. This happened under Trump. Trump is like, it's the lowest unemployment in the world. It's like, well, actually, no. We've been gaining less jobs over time. It's just people have been falling out of the labor force in those statistics. Same thing happened under Obama. Like Obama was like, hey, look at this. But then like my father, he works for the state, and he deals with unemployment and employment. He's an employment officer.
Oh, okay.
So he tells me all about this, how it's like, yeah, even though it says that unemployment's going down, that just means people are falling out of that labor force statistic. So that actually means more people are probably still unemployed than ever. But
blame that in part on automation.
So yeah, that's another huge one that the future, which is why
tech industry is automating.
Which
developers, coders.
Which is why I really like Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang
he's got good ideas.
He's got good ideas. The thing is, he's not gonna win.
No, he's not. He's way out of his league.
Universal basic income is something that I've thought about for a while. Yeah. That'd be tough. So over the next 15 years, we have 3 million truck drivers in this nation. They are going to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. In the next 30 to 40 years, autonomous automobiles will be the norm. Some people say it's going to be less. Some people say like 2025, 2030.
When we get to the autonomous vehicles, can we send Elon Musk to Mars then?
Yes. At that point, we can do it. He's done his job. At that point, he'll be an AI robot from Westworld, and he'll be up there.
They need to remove him as CEO.
See, this is actually something I get in an argument a lot. I love Elon Musk, but that's because I'm like an engineer, and I'm like, Elon, make cool cars.
Doesn't he love Lexus too? Even though Tesla, but it definitely models off of
He's
Lexus.
A car guy.
Come on.
But in the future, we're going to need universal basic income, and I think that'll be something amazing because it'll be a renaissance basically again, where people will imagine. I want to learn how to play piano. I've been wanting to for years. I don't have time. I want to film an episode for this podcast every single week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time. I'm tired after work.
Right.
Things come up. Life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to do something that isn't your main source of income. So
that's so true.
It's very true. And growing up, that's how it is. And especially when you need healthcare, you need to have a job now in this country, at least. Things like that. So I think universal basic income is our savior for the future. When it's going to come, I don't know. But basically, Andrew Yang's platform is giving $1,000 to every adult American once a month.
Right.
But then also you look at that and you're like, all right, you don't think inflation's going to have a play in that.
Right.
But then again, the bottom, 50% of Americans don't have more than $1,000 in their bank account, which is an astonishing number.
Yeah, I remember running into that statistic.
Which is like, I'm like, oh my, wow, like that blew my mind. But that just shows that basic income, those people aren't just going to hoard into a bank account. They're going to pay for the car. They're going to pay for their kids' college. They're going to pay for diapers, pay for food, pay for rent. That money is going to go back into the system. Mm-hmm. So it's not a terrible idea.
It's not, but, you know, to address the healthcare stuff, I mean, one thing that, you know, Congress can start doing now, you know, let's get the ball moving. That's why I think Obama didn't go far enough. They could expand the age to enroll into Medicare. You know, that's what Hillary was about. She's like, we can do this Medicare for all, but we can't do it right away because you're flipping an entire industry upside down. I mean, a third of our economy is based upon insurance. There's insurance for everything. There's insurance for this. There's insurance for your house. There's renter's insurance. There's liability insurance. There's car insurance, Uber insurance. I mean, you can insure your insurance. I mean, Christ. So, you know, I think I've made the point, but the thing is, you know, you got to keep the private people there. I don't agree with phasing out private insurance entirely overnight. We can work up to it, and there has to be an underlying assumption that, you know, we're not going to get crazy people who are going to mess up our laws and totally detrimentally, you know, change how our democratic republic functions as much as it already has been messed with. So, but the first thing, you know, I think it's 65 to enroll. Lower it down to maybe 60 or 55. 55 may be too much because you got to go in increments. That's what, you know, the neoliberal policy basically is. And, you know, I agree with that policy. You know, you got to do increments because of how big we are. That's why these comparisons to Canada and these other countries, do they got 360 million people? No, Canada's got like 40 million people or something.
330. Well, we have 330. Canada has more than 40. Does it?
It doesn't. I don't think they have that many. Not compared to the United States.
Population. Oh my gosh, where was I typing that? Canadian population.
And they could expand.
You're right, 37 million.
Really?
I thought they had more than that.
That's like, you know, when you get
That's half of Illinois, basically. No, 2 of Illinois in Canada.
Yeah. I basically took, you know, it's like when you have those candy jars and you got the gumballs in there, like, oh, how many are in there? That's basically what I did. So, but, you know, Obama...
volume screws with you. You know, here's a fun one.
It's
really
an engineering
off topic. How many gallons... This blows people mind. How many gallons do you think is in a cubic meter? Think about a meter stick, all right? It's about this table, right?
Yeah.
So, 1, 2, and then going towards you, 3. So you have a cube.
That's a lot of gallons.
How many gallons do you think that is?
60?
60 gallons?
Yeah.
I'll give you one more guess.
Will you give me a higher or lower, like we're doing that
higher.
goat thing?
Yeah.
120?
252 gallons.
Oh.
Isn't that weird? And
that's insane.
Think about a milk carton, right? I always think of a gallon as a milk carton in my head. I'm like, all right, milk carton. Okay.
Don't get me started on milk
2,
cartons,
3,
man.
4. Then I'm like, oh, like I said, I would have been like, all right, 45 gallons. No, 252. Volume's weird.
Dude, I gotta tell you, when I went to Oberweis the other day with my girlfriend, like, I saw people bringing in crates and they were bringing in 6 gallons of milk. I'm like, who needs 6 gallons of milk at their house? What are you doing over there?
Got some strong bones.
Oh my God.
Strong bones and strong boys.
Oh my goodness. That's good aside.
Yeah. That's something I always ask people. It's 252 or 254 gallons. Something asinine to the point I was like, even my own brain, I was like, wait, what?
I never want that much milk in my life, ever.
Yeah, that's a lot of milk.
Yeah, no, thank you, Oberweis. You can take your overpriced glass jugs.
But we were talking about healthcare.
Right. I mean, Obama could have expanded Medicaid a little bit more. I mean, because, you know, Medicaid's good. Medicaid's very good. They're very good with their payments and such, and people are complaining about Medicare not being timely and such. But, you know, at the end of the day, sometimes why not just... you know, to put it, you know, eloquently, the hospitals and the like, they can go, you know, themselves. I mean, come on, they're right now. If there really wanted to be change in 2010, you know, that's when Democrats had a majority in the House, Senate, and presidency. They really wanted to do something. You know what they could have done? They could have put caps on what these hospitals, these these medical service providers charge, because that's a whole part of the problem of the insurance companies, is because they are basically the net, like I was talking about with, hierarchies of law. They're the net for what you can't pay. So
I've seen documentaries where it's like a bag of a saline solution would be like $200, $300. It's like it's water with salt. And it probably took them $5 to produce one of those bags. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. No, I remember reading something about that. And Michael Moore had a documentary called Sicko, too. It probably got into that, yeah.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
What do you think of Michael Moore?
I think he's an idea man.
He's an idea man.
He was on Bill Maher last week.
He was, and I saw him. And he kind of just like argued the whole time. I remember it wasn't that great.
He's very interrupty.
Yeah.
He's gone full leftist.
Well, do you ever see his first movie, Robin? No.
Was it Fahrenheit?
No, it was oh man.
I've seen so many of his movies.
Something in Me. Robert and Me. It's basically about General Motors leaving Michigan.
No, I didn't see
Mexico.
that one.
That was his first one. That was actually a genuinely awesome. That it basically just showed that there was literally no reason for General Motors to leave. It was purely profits.
Mm-hmm.
And he put out 30,000 auto workers over like a 5-year period or something like that. And it's just like, and Bowling for Columbine was his biggest one. I think that he got his name out there.
Yeah, I saw.
Which was a good one. I'd like that. But then
tragedy.
Recently, it's just been his documentaries. I saw the one Where to Invade Next.
He's getting more fringy.
Yeah,
it's been a uptick that way.
But he was the only one that was on Bill Maher back in 2016 before the election, and he was the one who always said Trump's gonna win. He was the one who argued the whole time. He was like, Trump's going to win, because he said no matter what happens, once you get into that ballot box, no one else is watching what you're doing.
Right.
So all your racist tendencies, all your true identity can come out, and you say, you know what? I like Trump, and I like the community, and I like the good old-fashioned American way. And that's one of his arguments is like, he's going to win. And then everyone on Maher's panel was like, no. And
voting is one of the most objectively honest gauges of how people think, except when you're in Kansas and Georgia, where the secretaries of state at the time, Brian Kemp, he's the governor of Georgia now, I think. He rigged the election in his favor. So the Secretary of State runs elections, and basically you have these voting machines, which they can get hacked in 8 minutes. Some news organization did an expose on it, and if you wanted to choose the Democrat, I think in Texas too, they wouldn't let you. You had to keep, messing with the thing, and sometimes it would register as the vote opposite of what you wanted. And I think Kamala Harris came out to say this. She said, I think we need to go back to paper ballots. I agree. But, you got to make sure people aren't messing with that too today, because I think that we've gone a trajectory that we can't return to unless we change our political discourse, because I think that the epicenter of all this is political correctness.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that
the trajectory that we're going or have been.
Well, everyone
how about sorry.
No problem.
What do you mean by the base of it is all political correctness? How about that? Finish that thought.
Well, it's kind of been a centralized thing, don't you think, in our discourse? What's seen on TV, what's seen on Twitter some of the time, because basically it's Twitter and what these news corporations put out there. That's what rules, that's what legislators think rule, what these polls say, what's said on TV, what Twitter says. Like, for example, with these new Brett Kavanaugh allegations, 3 people jumped in on it, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala, and I think a host of others. They just jumped and said, impeach him. I want to get him impeached too. Don't get me wrong. I think he lied under oath, but there were some things that the New York Times did not tell us about this Max Stier, that he was one of Bill Clinton's lawyers when he was defending the impeachment. Kavanaugh was with Ken Starr prosecuting him. Okay, and then people got to remember too that Kavanaugh was one of the White House lawyers under Bush. So there's a Democrat versus Republican dichotomy there. And the female who he allegedly saw have, Kavanaugh thrust his thing in her face, she said, I don't remember that. But the thing is too,
really?
Yeah, she
Wait,
said
who's making the allegation then?
This guy named Max Steyer.
Oh.
He is like the CEO of a nonprofit in Seattle, Washington, I think. He's got a law degree too. Really smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
But and there's no reason not to think he's incredible. But the New York that's the problem with these. That ties it all together. There's a problem with this political discourse, and this political correction. People are sick and tired of it. I mean, that's how Trump came along. People are just like, okay, I don't want to be told what to say. Blah blah blah. That's why Fox News had to make a scandal out of Obama's tan suit. To make something jump because everything's so politically correct. Like you can't say this, you can't say that, and I blame this also on people not wanting to vote because. There was only Hillary got 66 million and then Trump got 62 or 63 million votes.
It was like a $3 million or 3 million vote divide or something like that.
Yeah, that's 200 million people who didn't come out to vote. And most of the country is liberal. Not crazy liberal I don't know if there are really any crazy liberals in my opinion, but part where we're not ready for that yet, but
there's some pretty far left people out there.
There
don't believe it
but you got to push the envelope so you can get change. So that's why I think it's good that they're going so far left. But it's another political talking point for Trump and all them to say, "Oh, they're getting radical left. Oh my god." So this is such a difficult place to live in, man.
It is. I believe I agree political correctness. It's gone too far in a lot of ways, but also like you said that my basic principle is just don't be a dick. If someone wants to change, wants to be called they or she or he, say that. I don't see what the issue is, with that, or talking about racial inclusion or taking away racial divides. We should probably do that, or be better, more conscientious of when we are subconsciously having certain thoughts or bias in our media or bias in TV, because that does have an effect on people. That's the reason we are here today, and a
lot of that's got to do with poverty, I think, as well. Why people can't, why people aren't as intellectually receptive or can say what you and I do, because they never had the chance. That's a lot of the problem too. It's just totally systemic.
But what's crazy is though that voice can now be heard though because of social media, which is as much as we talked about earlier, saying oh man, Facebook is screwing up a lot of things. It is helping a lot. They're definitely getting different viewpoints out there.
They are,
and also dank memes. But
they could do it without taking away our entire concept of privacy as we know it.
Yes,
they could do that. And they could have informed consent waiver agreements. They could tell you exactly what they're doing. They could tell you that developers don't have as much say as what goes into your newsfeed anymore. It's machine learning. Algorithms that correct itself based upon what you, the user, input into the Facebook program.
Which, as an engineer, I see that and go, that is awesome.
That's like the Turing model, isn't it? Alan Turing?
No, the Turing test is more of, well, I guess, in a way, yes. If Turing test is more for AI, general intelligence. Okay. So if you go,
so that's a step above.
That's more of, let's say I make a robot that can talk and respond back to you.
Boy.
If you or even auditorial, you answer a phone call, you call a company, and someone picks up.
Yeah.
If you cannot tell that it is a robot, that passes the Turing test. So if you can ask as many questions as you want and it responds in a manner where it tricks you, then essentially it's passed the Turing test. Turing test also goes into emotional development and stuff like that. How are you feeling today? And can the AI or the general intelligence respond in such a way that makes you feel like you are talking to another human? Can they display emotions? Can they display pain? Can they display happiness?
I feel like this should be an episode on Netflix, because all they talk, everything on there is now just what's going to happen in the future? Oh, let's go to dystopian stuff.
Yeah, and in some ways it's going to go that way, but then again, we are humans, and it seems like a lot of times we take 2 steps forward and one step back, or one step forward and two steps back. We have that. I think one day eventually the robots will take over, and I don't know, we'll become the Matrix, and we're already in the Matrix. This is already a simulation.
I mean, Will Smith's gonna vindicate us either way, right? Or his son with his wackiness. So
yeah,
we got two aces in the hole, I guess.
We're already in a simulation, more than likely. The one thing. So, two more things I wanted to ask you about opinion-wise. Biggest huge point of contention that happens every probably 2 weeks now that makes the news are all the really sad mass shootings that happen. Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Do you think anything from a law point is going to change with that? Because my
states, yes.
Yeah.
Federal, don't count on it if you got Mitch McConnell there. He's not budging. He's waiting. He's taking advantage of psychology, saying, "Oh, we're gonna let this pass, let this pass, let this pass." Oh, it's funny how even the Second Amendment, we didn't really get a Second Amendment until 2008 when Scalia wrote the opinion that said, "Oh, you have a right to bear arms." That was codified in constitutional law in 2008. That wasn't a thing until him, but now it's subject to what's called the levels of scrutiny because it is a basically codified constitutional right. So if there's government infringement on that right, I would have to look at the cases to be exact. There's something called strict scrutiny, and if the government infringes a constitutional right, they're subject to strict scrutiny. So that means that they have to show that there is a very narrow reason why they have this law, and it is important to further the interests they're trying to do. So let's take, for example, you're banning assault rifles. That's going to be constitutional because we don't want any more mass shootings. Like, that's common sense, But then if you get into stuff like, oh, let's take away their handguns, and that's to further public safety too. Now, maybe if you get a judge that thinks like me, yeah, that might work. But if you get judges that are in the South or people that lean right, they're gonna be like, no, there's no reason for this. Like, guns are safe. Good guy, good gun. We'll
stop.
We win. Yeah, exactly.
One of the worry I have is that the wheels are already turning. We have more guns. We have 101 guns to 100 pupils in this population. I don't know if that really.
That's dumbfounding.
I don't know if that includes military or not. I have no clue. I just know that's a statistic. Either way, even if it was like 50 guns per 100 people, it's like that's a lot of guns. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The ball's already rolling. What about the people who already own these AR-15 stuff? What is it? Not Buttigieg. Who? Beto.
He talks about a buyback. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people advocate for that.
And he says we're coming after your AR-15s. He said that in the debate last Thursday, which for me was just like, oh, you just lost every possible borderline vote in that regard.
He should run for Senate.
Saying you're going to take away everyone's AR-15, you're just like,
It was good when he said it in the context because of El Paso. There were back-to-back shootings that weekend. And, legally, you can do that. But the government's got to pay a price.
What's nuts is I've been to the bar in Dayton. I lived in Cincinnati for like 8 months a little over a year ago.
Right.
And I've been there before, and I'm like, I've stood in that line. That could have been my head blown off. I'm like, that's like fucking scary.
There was I think there was a senator or House of Rep who had a daughter who was across the street at the time of one of these shootings happening, and he's a Republican, and he's leaning towards, from the most recent report I read, he's leaning towards putting in background checks and stuff,
Which I'm just blown away that that's not really a thing, but is it?
NRA.
So for example, all right, I actually have my FOID card.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the fence with I like guns. I've loved 007, Bourne, my whole life, Mission Impossible. I was a boy. I like getting the toy guns. I like being an army soldier or a SWAT guy when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I like guns, and from an engineering standpoint of being able to propel a copper projectile,
it's fascinating.
It's fascinating. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on there.
I can see that, yeah.
And I want to go target shooting. I think that's that's fun. When you shoot a gun, it's just like yes. Like some little boy manly thinking about it. It's like, all right.
But you've got a different appreciation compared to most people because you like the science as well as the effect, but you appreciate the science. Not a lot of people appreciate the science. They just like the effect, you know, the power.
But that's also, I think that's fine. That's fair. I mean, there's people that like really fast cars, but they're not huge car guys. Or they love football, but they don't play football. Like, you know, I think that's fine. But, you know, there comes a time where, you know, the argument saying, you know, I've seen people about like assault rifles. They're like, well, what is an assault rifle? And you're just like, dipshit. That's what the AR-15 is. It's a magazine-fed rifle that can, you know, depending on its stock and barrel, can take things bigger than a 9mm round.
AR stands for assault rifle too.
It's like the Flat Earth Society. We have people all around the globe. But that's a real, you know, they had like that was like a real.
I saw Jim Jeffries bit where he brought in these various people, and the flat earther guy, like even the guys who were supporting these crazy things, like I think China trying to, I don't know, well China might be, but like you could just see it's nonsense.
But you know, with guns, it's like if all of a sudden you're like, well, you can kill someone with your car, and you're like, well, yes. Yeah, I can kill someone with a spoon, like if I wanted to. Like, you know, you could do that. A car is meant to get you from point A to B and protect its occupants and passengers and surrounding environment. Okay.
Yes, sir.
A gun's main purpose is to destroy, maim, or kill anything that's on the other side or the projecting side of that barrel. Mm-hmm. That's the point of a gun, whether you're shooting deer, shooting targets, or shooting people on a battlefield, or protecting yourself from whoever, you know?
Right.
That's the point of a gun. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, you know, it's that people are like, well, you know, terrorists have taken vans and have ran into markets. They're like, yes, unfortunately, that has happened.
Right.
But they've also gone on knife stabbing sprees, and you're like, are you gonna take away all knives? You're like, well, I guess there's an argument that a knife is meant to cut various objects, but a gun's entire purpose was to create the damage that possibly a knife could do, but at a long distance and with a potentially fatal blow for every single hit. Mm-hmm. And I've seen the argument that, like, they're like a golf club, like they're like, this golf club has now become an assault like weapon or something. It's like, yeah, but until I can throw a golf club at 100 yards away and have every single throw be pretty accurate and pretty almost lethal to that target, then I'll say, you know, we should probably look at golf clubs.
We probably wouldn't be having this podcast if you were able to do that.
Yeah. And we have advancements like when airplanes crashing, we looked at, you know, different designs. When 9/11 happened, we said, shit, we've never locked the cockpit door. Let's change that. Yeah. When someone tried sneaking a shoe bomb onto a plane, they said, all right, we should start checking shoes now. When car crashes used to happen and, you know, people's faces would be crushed onto the steering wheel because they didn't have seat belts, they said, we should probably put seat belts in. Why is this happening in the first place? Well, there's no crumple zone on a car. Let's design a crumple zone to dissipate energy. Even then, people's faces are going through windshields. Let's make an airbag. Humans advance. That's what we do.
Trial and
error, but also we have a frontal cortex that can take, you know, complex thoughts, and we just in the same way we've evolved from a musket to an AR rifle. The same thing should happen if these shootings keep on happening. They keep happening in succession with each other.
Yeah.
We should at least look and go, there's something going on here. We should be able to change simple things. We can't change humans right now, but we can at least limit their capacity in getting guns.
Right.
I think that's my view on it.
No, I completely agree with it, Stephen. And, you know, that the states are really, you know, Illinois is really doing stuff. I mean, we gotta, you know, some people may not like the fact that it's all democratically controlled. You know, our taxes are being raised and the like, whatever. But at the same time, they're getting some good stuff done. I mean, I don't know exactly what's going on in regards to gun regulation, but I think Pritzker signed into law basics like background checks, you know, don't give them to people who are mentally ill. There are these red flag laws where there are problems with that, but there's people who, if there's evidence that someone is going to do something, you know, you bring them in and take their gun away. But there needs to be more. They're like, Clinton signed the law to ban assault rifles, and mass shootings went down, crazily. I mean, I think that was in response to Columbine, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
That would make logical sense because Congress usually puts in these great big acts when, crazy things happen in our society. But Congress isn't doing it now. I mean, we've been Sandy Hook. I mean, that was in 2016? I remember Bernie Sanders getting in his old baritone voice. Oh, we need the background checks, folks.
It's 2013 or 14.
Okay.
It was. I remember I was still in college when that happened. And a buyback program would be a great idea. I know they've done that before, and it's happened. I don't know which one died. It was that camera. Buyback programs have happened before, and there's an argument saying, look at Chicago. Chicago's a mess, and Illinois Chicago specifically has strict gun laws. It's like, well, they find that 60% of all illegal guns found throughout gangs or crimes come from Indiana. It's kind of like
an Wild West there.
Yeah. We need to do something, and it's so obvious. It's like that. Our society's kind of sick right now, and we could wind this all the way back to our entire capitalist system. People are stressed. People are depressed at higher rates than ever before. Or at least we recognize that. And
capitalism is designed to stress you out.
Yeah.
That is the main thing. Everyone trying to put their shoe on each other's faces, to gain a step up in the world, like survival of the fittest. Like, that's what it basically is. It's a race to the top and a race to the bottom at the same time.
Yeah. But, I mean, thank God we have trickle-down economics, though, to help everyone else. Thank God we don't tax Amazon. That is just an amazing thing. But, we could circle back all day about, where this all comes from or what's, the chicken or the egg. There's so many of those situations going on right now. But, there definitely is something going on in society. We are sick right now.
Yeah.
I feel like. And I don't know. It's something hard.
I just think it's social media for the most part.
Yeah.
I think, they're, like you said, anybody's got an opinion, and, opinions are like butts. They all stink and everyone's got them. And, you'll listen to people like Alex Jones or these crazy people like Candace Owen, who spew these white supremacist things. And Candace Owen is African-American. I don't know why.
She is insane.
I have family who likes her. I'm like, how are we related?
She was on Joe Rogan, and she talked about climate change.
Oh, Ted Lieu ripped her a new one when she supported Adolf Hitler, saying he wasn't a nationalist. Are you kidding me? That was the whole reason why Hitler did what he did. That's why he was able to manipulate the German people and say that the Jews are the reason because of nationalism. That was the root of it. She is. Oh.
And then the climate change one, I didn't know about that. I'll have to watch that. But the climate change one too, when she's just like, it's just something I just believe. I'm like, you can't just have a little fluttering feeling that something is exists. I'm like, that's not how it works.
If that's how science worked, well, we'd have 50,000 Trumps right now.
Yeah, and there's just some weird things going on. So back to starting the Fourth Amendment, social media, you got off it. Kind of I'll give me your final thoughts on social media, where, from a law standpoint, from how corporations mine our data, are we safe? Are we protected? Should we be using social media? Why did you get off social media? I know you said it's personal reasons. I don't know.
Some of it. But, I don't think we're fully safe because Cambridge Analytica had stated on the record, I believe, they had 5,000 data points on every single American in this country. 5,000 data points. What could those be? We just had a case out on 26th Street where the government was taking his cell site data information.
I only have 10 thoughts a day. How can they have 5,000 points on me? What do I do?
When you click, you type something in the search bar, you press enter, how long you look at a page, if you use the highlight tool to look at something, if you zoom in, if you zoom back out, if you link the article to one of your friends, if you send it an email, all that can be tracked. All that is tracked.
Mm-hmm.
Your browser, I use Google Chrome. They know everything you do on the internet. you agree to a BS privacy policy where they can basically monitor everything. And it's across the board. All these companies have these privacy policies. And you know what we need to do? I think the first step is to eradicate these, give us a constitutional right to our data, our private data. And the Supreme Court's already talked about this, where if you have a map of someone's movements, that's a search under the Fourth Amendment. Carpenter versus United States, 2017 or 18, I think, very recent. And it was, I don't remember how it went, like in terms of number of votes, but John Roberts, he wrote the opinion, a Republican. He said that we've got an expectation of privacy in a week's worth of our movements, at least, because the government was looking to subpoena Timothy Carpenter, this alleged robber. He had a string of cohorts with him. Take his Sprint and his other phone he was using to basically lay out a map of where he was on these days in question. In regards to these robberies. Where was he? And basically, the court said, that's a search. You need to get a warrant to go get that. And I think a warrant's good, but, there needs to be, the third-party doctrine needs to go. It needs to go because it doesn't take into account what this staff attorney at, I think she's at Georgetown. Her name is Lindsay Barrett. She advocates, as do others, for power dynamics look at privacy data, and how the law should treat it, because how consumer privacy law is right now, it's basically, okay, the read it rule in contract law. Okay, if you the mere fact that you sign the contract, okay, you assume you read it and you relinquish your rights. No, that's not good enough, because John Roberts even said in a 2014 opinion where police have to get a warrant to search your cell phone. You can't just, as an incident to arrest, take out the cell phone and say, oh, hey, let's go look at it, no, you can't do it. You need a warrant to get in. That's how, the court took into play in this Carpenter decision, the power dynamics, the fact that that Sprint is not an ordinary witness. I think that's quoted in the opinion. It is not an ordinary witness. It can track your movements every minute, because that's how cell site data location works. Radio waves and the like, and this power dynamics, because corporations have the leverage. They've been lobbying, getting all these laws with all these exceptions that favor them and the like. And, we're just empowering them if we don't focus on the fact that, look, they have all this power. We're doing a million things at once as Americans. We got jobs and stuff. Who's going to read tiny print privacy policy and scroll through it? No one's going to do that because, John Roberts even said the phone, it's like you need in order to participate in society. So that reality needs to be codified in the law, and it needs to have a perspective where we need to limit what these guys do, what these big companies do, because they're getting bigger and bigger, charging us more and more money, and wages are staying stagnant, and we don't have as much recourse to fight them. I mean, the EU's got some recourse with the GDPR, but what do we have in the United States? We don't have much.
I agree with your thoughts.
It's a tough world, Stephen, but
it's
at least
scary.
I can tell you what my opinions are, and you appreciate them.
And I like it. And,
good.
I enjoy talking with you or arguing with you online. We've had a few arguments here or there.
I gotta...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long do you think we've gone so far? This is the time warp of the podcast.
Hour 20.
Hour and 40.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
really? So it was good.
I've had guests be like 45 minutes. I'm like, ooh, we're off by an entire hour. But, yes. So, talk about
So here's my shameless plug, everyone. So I am an associate, Michael D. Ettinger and Associates. That's my father's law firm. He's been around, for a long time. He represented Rod Blagojevich's brother in the infamous corruption scandal where Rod was accused of basically selling off Obama's Senate seat to the highest bidder, but my thoughts about that on a different day. But Robert, he was a co-defendant, and he was implicated in some of that conduct. My dad was able to get to hang the jury, and then he played the psychological play where the government wanted to separate the case. He said no, government dropped the charges. So if you have any criminal, or we sue people too. We got a big lawsuit going on right now. We sue people. So if you got criminal or civil matters, call us 708-923-0368. You can look on our website, michaeldettingerlaw.com. There are articles on there. My profile's on there. Our other associates. We do a whole host of areas of the law. We engage in many areas. So give us a call if you got any questions. You can call us anytime for free. I mean, we're not price gouging lawyers. We're pretty fair. So if you ever got a question, just call us.
Absolutely, you'll be on my list now.
Good.
I know an official lawyer. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
I hope you enjoyed your time. And
I did.
If you ever want to come on again.
I'd love to.
I didn't say anything about your suit. I am so underdressed. I'm wearing like a Lexus racing shirt.
Come on. Lexus is the prime car brand.
Come on. It is the pinnacle.
That's what I want to get.
And right when you walked in, I was like, oh no. I was like, come more casual. But you know what? You're representing yourself, and you look fabulous.
I'm pro se.
You brought absolutely fabulous content, and I thank you. To everyone out there, I hope you guys enjoyed as well. We are going to get going. So, bye-bye, everybody. And
Thanks,
see you guys
everyone.
next time.
Thanks, Steven.
Absolutely. See you guys. All right. So,
that was that.